なんだとまだいたのか。
ほらルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
海賊だと。
Gold Roger, the Pirate King, had attained enormous wealth, fame, and power. Before he was executed, he announced to the crowd that he had left all his treasure at a certain place that could only be discovered by scouring the entire world, causing the world to enter the Great Age of Pirates. 11 years later, the Red Hair Pirates came to a small port village named Fuchsia Village. After a year of them being there, a young boy named Monkey D. Luffy came to their ship to prove he was tough enough to join them by stabbing his face under his left eye. The pirates and Luffy then went to the bar, where the pirates toasted to Luffy's craziness as they ate and drank. Luffy tried to convince the captain, red-haired Shanks, to let him join the crew, but Shanks gently refused due to Luffy being too young and unable to swim. Suddenly, a group of mountain bandits led by Higuma entered the bar and demanded alcohol. The bartender Makino told them that the pirates had drank all of it already, and when Shanks offered Higuma the last bottle, he responded by breaking it over Shanks' head, not fearing the pirate due to his belly 8 million bounty. Shanks simply responded by apologizing and cleaning up the mess, causing Higuma to break some more dishes before leaving with his gang. Afterwards, the Red Hair Pirates just laughed, but Luffy was angry at Shanks for not standing up for himself. He stormed out of the bar, and Shanks tried to grab his arm to hold him back, but to his shock, Luffy kept walking as his arm stretched like rubber. The Red Hair Pirates then realized that the devil fruit they had stolen, the Gomu Gomu no Mai, was no longer in its chest, and Luffy confirmed that he had eaten it for dessert. Shanks revealed that Luffy's body was now made of rubber due to eating the devil fruit, and he would be unable to swim for the rest of his life. Sometime later, the Red Hair Pirates had gone off on another voyage, and Luffy was starting to have fun with his new rubber body. One day, however, he was sitting in Makino's bar when Higuma's gang returned and demanded alcohol. Soon afterwards, Makino alerted the mayor, Whoopslap, that Luffy had been kidnapped by the bandits after picking a fight with them. Higuma initially planned to sell Luffy to a circus due to his strange body, but then decided to kill him for angering him. However, Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates then returned, and when one of the bandits pointed his gun at Shanks, the pirate Lucky Rook shot him. Shanks stated that he could accept an insult toward him, but would not forgive anyone who harms his friends. His first mate, Ben Beckman, then overpowered the bandits single-handedly, though Higuma managed to escape with Luffy in tow by throwing a smoke bomb. Higuma took Luffy out to sea and kicked him off the boat to drown him, and as Luffy struggled to stay afloat, a sea king known as Lord of the Coast came to eat Higuma. It then moved to eat Luffy, but Shanks arrived in the nick of time to save Luffy and scare the beast away. Shanks was glad Luffy was okay, but Luffy was saddened that he had lost his arm in the process of saving him. Later, the Red Hair Pirates were preparing to leave Fuchsia Village for good. Luffy had decided that he would not try to join them and declared that he would form his own crew that would be stronger than Shanks, find the greatest treasure, and become the Pirate King. To take Luffy up on his word, Shanks gave him his straw hat and told him to return it once he had surpassed him. As the Red Hair Pirates set sail, Shanks and Beckman both anticipated Luffy doing big things in the future. 10 years later, Luffy set sail on his own in a small rowboat. The Lord of the Coast came to confront him, and he quickly took it out with Gomu 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 no pistol, where he stretched his arm forward and unleashed a long-range punch. As he drifted out to sea, Luffy plotted to recruit at least 10 crewmates, make a Jolly Roger, and become the Pirate King. Luffy is cast at sea in a barrel. Sailors on a passing cruise ship retrieve the barrel, but the ship is attacked with cannon fire by a nearby pirate ship led by Alvida. The barrel is sent rolling into the kitchen. Once the cruise ship's sails have been destroyed, the Alvida pirates board the ship to plunder its goods, and Alvida also forces one of her chore boys, Kobe, to board the ship. Meanwhile, a girl takes advantage of the opportunity and sneaks aboard the Alvida pirates' ship to steal its treasures. Kobe and other pirates notice the barrel in the kitchen and find Luffy inside, who is sleeping. After Luffy defeats the hostile pirates, he goes with Kobe to the pantry to eat the stored food. Luffy explains that he set sail to begin his pirating career, but his dinghy was destroyed by a whirlpool, and he was left trapped at sea in a barrel. Kobe explains that he was riding on a rowboat, but was kidnapped by the Alvida pirates and forced to become a chore boy. He explains his desires to escape the Alvida pirates someday and join the Marines. Alvida is informed of Luffy's presence, and, out of suspicion that he could be a bounty hunter, confronts him and Kobe in the pantry. This triggers a battle on the ship, but Luffy defeats the pirates. Although Alvida is armed with a large spiked club, her attacks are rendered ineffective, as Luffy ate a devil fruit, granting him a superhuman ability that gives his body rubber-like properties. Using a Gomu Gomu no pistol attack, Luffy defeats Alvida, sending her flying off the ship and into the sea. Having concluded the battle, Luffy boards a dinghy with Kobe to continue his travels, catching a glimpse of the female burglar who was also departing the ship on her own dinghy. Luffy aims towards the Grand Line to search for the One Piece treasure, but first looks to recruit the infamous pirate hunter Zoro into his crew. Luffy and Kobe arrive at Shellstown, a town where a marine base is stationed. They find their target, Zoro, crucified at the base. A small girl, Rika, sneaks into the base to offer Zoro onigiri, but she is stopped by Helmeppo, a snobbish man who destroys the onigiri. However, Zoro later eats the dirt-stained rice. Outside the marine base, Rika reveals that the town was run by a tyrannical Captain Morgan, who allowed his son Helmeppo to regularly abuse his citizens. One day, Helmeppo brought a hostile wolf into a bar which attacked the customers and ate their food. When Zoro attacked Helmeppo for his cruelty, Helmeppo threatened to execute all customers in the bar unless Zoro turned himself into the Marines, where he would be crucified for 1 month. Later, Helmeppo reveals that he intended to execute Zoro, violating the deal he had struck with him. Luffy assaults him for his dishonesty, then heads towards the marine base to locate Zoro's confiscated katanas. As Morgan orders his men to erect a large statue of himself on the base's rooftop, Luffy launches himself towards the rooftop, accidentally destroying the statue in the process. Luffy grabs Helmeppo and flees, searching the building and locating the katanas. Meanwhile, the girl who robbed the Alvida pirates' ship also infiltrates the marine base to steal its goods. Meanwhile, Kobe attempts to free Zoro from the cross, but is spotted by Morgan, who orders his men to open fire on them both. They are stopped by Luffy, who deflects the bullets with his rubber body. Luffy returns the katana to Zoro, who uses them to free himself and repel the Marines' attacks. He agrees to join Luffy's crew should he survive. Despite being clearly overpowered by Luffy's devil fruit power and Zoro's three-sword style, Morgan orders his men to attack them. Morgan himself joins the battle, with his right hand being replaced by an axe blade. Despite Luffy overpowering Morgan, Helmeppo holds Kobe hostage, threatening to shoot him. Meanwhile, as Luffy is distracted, Morgan attempts to attack him from behind. Luffy punches Helmeppo in the face and Zoro cuts Morgan down, preventing him from harming Luffy. The Marines, who were aware of Morgan's numerous abuses of power, decide not to continue the battle, instead dishonorably discharging and arresting their own captain. Luffy, Zoro, and Kobe go to a restaurant to celebrate their victory. Kobe explains how the world is divided. The world is divided into west and east by a continent called the Red Line, and the Grand Line is a linear sea perpendicular to the Red Line. Legendary pirate Gold Roger claimed he had hidden his treasure at the very end of the Grand Line. Ripper, the Marine who had succeeded Morgan as the new base commander, confronts Luffy. He agrees to accept Kobe into the Marines upon his request. However, due to Luffy and Zoro's statuses as pirates, he orders them both to leave the town, only promising not to inform headquarters as a gesture of gratitude. Luffy and Zoro agree, and they both continue their travels. Meanwhile, a girl searches the Marine base for a map of the Grand Line. She discovers that the map had been stolen by another pirate, Buggy. She sets sail to confront Buggy and retrieve his map. The burglar girl's dinghy is discovered by 3 Buggy pirates while at sea. Pretending to be a desperate, stranded woman, she lures the pirates on her boat with promises of treasure. However, she secretly boards the Buggy pirates' boat and sails away from them without their knowledge. The ship the pirates are on capsizes from a windstorm. Meanwhile, Luffy and Zoro sail towards their next destination, but Luffy loses his signature straw hat when the boat jostles. Zoro recovers the hat, and its significance to Luffy is explained. In his childhood, Luffy befriended Shanks, a pirate captain residing in his home village. While Luffy and the Red Hair Pirates were at a bar, Luffy unknowingly ate the Gomu Gomu no Mai, a devil fruit Shanks had acquired during his travels. Upon eating the fruit, Luffy's body immediately gained rubber-like properties, but he had permanently lost the ability to swim. However, Luffy was terrorized and threatened by Higuma and his group of mountain bandits. Although Shanks and his pirates came to his aid, Higuma escaped, abducting Luffy. Higuma sailed out to sea on a small rowboat and threw Luffy into the sea for him to drown. However, a Sea King, a carnivorous sea monster, appeared and devoured Higuma whole, threatening to target Luffy next. Shanks rescued Luffy, but he lost his left arm in the process. Eventually, the Red Hair Pirates departed from Fuchsia Village and set sail for the Grand Line. Just before he left, Shanks entrusted Luffy with his straw hat for him to protect. Throughout the years, Luffy cherished his hat to remind him of his idol. Back to the present day, Luffy is abducted by a bird and sent flying away. The Buggy pirates who were left stranded in the sea discover Zoro's rowboat, board it, and attempt to hijack it, but are swiftly defeated by him. The Buggy pirates explain that Buggy is a fearsome pirate with his own devil fruit ability. Meanwhile, the bird lets go of Luffy after being shot down by cannon fire, causing Luffy to fall into Buggy's territory. He meets the female thief for the first time, who had stolen the map and was being pursued by Buggy pirates. The girl introduces herself as Nami, a thief targeting and stealing from pirates. After collaborating with Luffy to escape from the Buggy pirates, they find refuge at a restaurant, where Nami reveals her goal of collecting 100 million berries for an unknown cause. She then goes on and reveals her navigation skills. Nami betrays Luffy, tying him up and handing him over to the Buggy pirates as a gesture of goodwill. Buggy accepts, locks Luffy into a cage, and prepares a Buggy ball, a powerful explosive cannonball. Buggy's pirates fire the cannon into the distance, destroying an entire row of houses. Zoro, who has just arrived at the town, notices the explosion. Buggy then orders Nami to fire a Buggy ball at Luffy, but she refuses to do so. Another pirate lights the cannon's fuse for her, but Nami extinguishes the fuse with her bare hands, burning herself. Buggy orders his pirates to attack her. Zoro arrives at her aid and attacks Buggy, cutting off his hand and leg. However, Buggy's dismembered hand stabs Zoro from behind, then reattaches itself to Buggy's arm. He reveals that he ate the Bara no Mai, allowing him to split himself into pieces, control them, and reattach them. Despite this, Zoro runs to the cannon, readjusts it to aim at the Buggy pirates, and allows Nami to reignite the fuse, firing the cannon. Having warded off the Buggy pirates, a wounded Zoro drags Luffy's cage to a local pet food shop. The mayor appears and takes Zoro into his house to nurse his wounds. Meanwhile, Luffy interacts with Chushu, a dog defending the shop. The mayor explains that Chaochu's owner passed away from illness, so he continues to defend the deceased owner's store as a memento. Although Nami arrives with the key to Luffy's cage, Chaochu eats the key before the cage could be unlocked. Buggy sends his first mate, Moji the Beast Tamer, to search for and eliminate Zoro. Riding his lion Richie, he finds Luffy still trapped in the cage. Moji orders Richie to attack Luffy, inadvertently destroying his cage and setting him free. He then strikes Luffy into a house, destroying it. Richie raids the store for food and burns it to the ground as Chaochu fights in vain to defend the store. After seeing Moji's actions, Luffy came to Chaochu's aid, defeating both Richie and Moji before giving the dog a single box of pet food salvaged from the fire. Moji returns to Buggy to report his defeat. As an act of vengeance, Buggy fires a Buggy ball into the town, destroying the mayor's house with Zoro still in it. Although Zoro was fortunately unharmed by the blast, the mayor decides to stand up to Buggy for his callous invasion of the town. Nami agrees to temporarily join forces with Luffy and Zoro and assist Boodle in confronting Buggy. Luffy knocks Boodle unconscious to prevent him from injuring himself further in battle. Buggy fires a Buggy ball at the group, but Luffy deflects the cannonball using his rubber body, firing the projectile back at the Buggy pirates. Buggy's men are decimated by the attack, save for Buggy himself, who had used his subordinates as human shields, and his chief of staff and acrobat, Kabaji, who had used Richie as a shield. Kabaji offers to battle the group on Buggy's behalf, and Zoro decides to duel him one-on-one. At the start of the battle, Kabaji uses dirty tricks to give himself an advantage, aiming for Zoro's stab wound. He also rides on his unicycle to attack Zoro from different angles. However, Zoro uses his onigiri technique, slicing Kabaji's chest and defeating him. Kabaji falls off his unicycle, and Zoro falls asleep on the ground, leaving Luffy and Buggy the only combatants left in combat. During Zoro's battle with Kabaji, Nami breaks away from the group, instead trespassing into the pub. She takes down one of the patrolling guards and uses his key to open a treasure chest, revealing a map of the Grand Line inside. Luffy and Buggy battle, with Buggy detaching his body parts to protect himself from Luffy's attacks. However, Buggy manages to damage Luffy's straw hat. Buggy then pierces the hat with 3 knives, further infuriating Luffy. After Luffy reveals the significance of the hat to Buggy, Buggy reveals that he holds a very strong grudge against Shanks, cursing his name. Buggy reveals his relationship with Shanks, as they were both apprentices working for a pirate crew. While the pirates were looting a ship, Buggy found a valuable treasure map and kept it for himself. He later learns from Shanks that the pirates have also looted a devil fruit from the ship. Buggy planned to steal the fruit, escape the crew, and sell both the fruit and the map. Buggy ate a fake devil fruit in front of the pirates while he kept the real one for himself. However, just before he was able to leave with the fruit, he was caught by Shanks, causing him to accidentally eat the fruit. Buggy also lost the treasure map as the wind blew the map overboard. Buggy, who permanently lost the ability to swim, was unable to recover the map, foiling his plans of defecting from the pirates and starting his own crew. He would need to wait another 10 years to accrue the wealth needed to start his own crew. In the present day, Buggy spots Nami attempting to leave with his treasure. Using Bara Festival, Buggy splits himself up into several pieces and attempts to seize his stolen treasure. However, Luffy comes to her aid, striking him down. Buggy attempts to reassemble himself, but Nami restrains many of his body parts with a rope, leaving Buggy much smaller. Luffy then strikes the weakened Buggy with Gomu Gomu no Bazooka, sending him flying into the air and out of the town. Nami gives Luffy the map of the Grand Line while she keeps the rest of Buggy's treasures. She agrees to temporarily sail with the crew as an opportunity to acquire bellies. Meanwhile, the citizens of Orangetown, who had evacuated to the outskirts due to Buggy's invasion, grow increasingly concerned for their mayor's safety and decide to return to the town. However, as the group were the only pirates left in the town, they are incorrectly blamed for the destruction of the town. Luffy flees from the angry citizens. Chao Chu, aware of the crew's true intentions, stops the mob, allowing them to head to the pier to escape. Back in the town, Boodle wakes up and finds that the Buggy pirates have been successfully repelled from the town. He goes to the pier to thank the group as they depart. To Nami's horror, Luffy leaves her treasures behind so the citizens could fund repairs for the town. The crew, who lack a ship adequate for the Grand Line, decide to stop by Syrup Village, a small island in the south, in search of a better ship. In Syrup Village, the town prankster fools the townspeople into thinking pirates have come to attack the village. The townspeople chase him out of town. However, one of the children in Usopp's pretend pirate crew inform him that pirates have indeed arrived at the island. The Usopp pirates go to the coast to confront the crew. Usopp attempts to intimidate and repel them from the island, but all attempts fail as Luffy sees through each of his ploys. Luffy deduces that Usopp is the son of Yasopp, one of the people on Shank's crew. After stopping at a local restaurant for food, they decide to go to the large mansion on top of the hill to ask its owners for financial support. The lady of the mansion, Kaya, is being protected by her butler, Klahadore, following her parents' deaths. Despite Usopp being the only person to make her happy, Klahadore bars him from entering the mansion due to his reputation as a delinquent. Still, Usopp sneaks into the mansion and speaks with Kaya. The crew follow him and sneak into the mansion, but Klahadore confronts them for trespassing. In the outskirts of the town, a peculiar man emerges, moonwalking down the road. Klahadore confronts the crew, refusing their request for a ship. Redirecting his rage at Usopp, he insults Usopp for his pirate father, calling him a barbaric, lowly criminal. Usopp angrily attacks Klahadore. In response, Klahadore expels Usopp and the crew from the front yard, ordering them to never return. Kaya remains in her bedroom and cries, and Klahadore enters to console her. He explains his past and the reasoning behind his protection of her. After being expelled from the ship he was working on, he was left derelict in Syrup Village. Kaya's father kindly accepted him into his mansion, and he dedicated himself to servitude for Kaya's family. After Kaya's parents passed away, Klahadore decided to become her guardian and protect her from harm, including Usopp, whom he considers to be a bad influence on her. Kaya forgives Klahadore for his harsh handling of the situation. Zoro and Nami remain on the outskirts of town with the children. One of the children discovers the strange moonwalking man and alerts the others. The man introduces himself as a hypnotist. He demonstrates his skills by hypnotizing the children with a chakram on a string, causing the children to fall asleep. However, he accidentally hypnotizes himself, causing him to fall asleep as well. Usopp and Luffy sit on a cliff, where they discuss Usopp's father, Yasopp. However, they find Klahadore, who is privately meeting with the hypnotist, Django, at the base of the cliff. To their horror, they find that Klahadore was really Captain Kuro of the Black Cat Pirates. Kuro and Django intended to assassinate Kaya to inherit her wealth, as Django could hypnotize Kaya into changing her will. They reveal that Kuro escaped Marine pursuit by sending a look-alike of him to the Marines for execution. Django reveals that the Black Cat Pirates ship was stationed at the island, ready to invade the village. Kuro and Django spot Luffy and Usopp overhearing their conversation. Django hypnotizes Luffy asleep, causing him to fall headfirst off the cliff. They decide not to pursue Usopp, knowing the townspeople would not believe him if he spoke out. Usopp flees toward the village. Nami and Zoro head to the cliff to look for Luffy. They discover Luffy at the base of the cliff, and they head to the bottom of the cliff to wake him up unharmed. Luffy reveals to them Klahadore's malicious intents. Usopp runs to the village to alert others about the incoming attack, but the townspeople refuse to believe him, contrasting him to Klahadore, whom they trust more. The townspeople chase Usopp out of the town. Usopp then goes to Kaya's mansion to warn her about the danger, but she also does not believe him, believing it to be an unusually cruel joke. Usopp attempts to escort Kaya out of the building, but is faced against the mansion guards. Although Usopp fights the guards, Kaya refuses to leave, hitting Usopp across the face. One of Kaya's butlers, Mary, shoots Usopp in the arm, and the townspeople continue to pursue him. Meanwhile, Kuro meets with his crew at their ship stationed at the island. He orders them to destroy the entire village the next day. The crew, Usopp and the children meet at the outskirts of the village. The children express their disappointment in Usopp for lying as they leave. The crew agree to fight alongside Usopp to defend Syrup Village from the Black Cat pirates. The crew prepare for the incoming attack. As the only entrance to the village is a single sloped path at the island's south end, they stand guard at the pathway to prevent the Black Cat pirates from entering. They cover the slope with slippery oil to prevent them from walking up the path. Kuro, still disguised as Klahadore, returns to Kaya's mansion, where Kaya is already asleep and Mary tending to his duties. Kuro finds a gift Kaya got for him, a pair of glasses custom made for him so they would not slip off his nose. Kuro destroys the pair of glasses, revealing his true self to Mary. Revealing a set of long blades attached to his fingers like cat claws. He slices Mary down before heading to Kaya's bedroom to watch her sleep. Morning arrives and as planned, the Black Cat pirates led by Django dock at the island. However, Usopp forgets that there is a second entrance to the village at the island's north end, through which the Black Cat pirates decided to use instead. Nami, Luffy, and Usopp rush to the north end, whereas Zoro is trapped by the south entrance's slippery slope. As Zoro continues to struggle to climb the slope, Luffy gets lost while attempting to reach the north coast. Arriving at the north end and using his slingshot, Usopp strikes down many of the advancing Black Cat pirates. Usopp attempts to bribe the pirates away using the treasures on the crew's ship, but Nami arrives and stops them. Undeterred, the Black Pirates continue their advances onto the island, and Nami and Usopp are unable to stop them. However, Luffy and Zoro arrive just in time to stop them. Kuro notices his crew is late entering the village. He decides to personally head down to the north coast, vowing to kill his entire crew if his plan were to go wrong. The children attempt to enter Kaya's mansion to check on her, but Usopp's secret entrance had been sealed and they cannot climb the gates. Inside the mansion, Kaya exits her bedroom to find a wounded Mary on the floor. Mary reveals that Usopp had been telling the truth and Klahadore was indeed a pirate attempting to assassinate Kaya for her family fortune. As the invading Black Cat pirates find themselves unable to fight off Luffy and Zoro, Django hypnotizes them to increase their strength. The newly hypnotized combatants become far stronger, shattering cliffs with a single punch. However, Django accidentally hypnotizes Luffy in the process, who with his strength enhanced, defeats the Black Cat pirates, then tears off the bow of the Black Cat pirates' ship. Django hypnotizes Luffy asleep and Luffy collapses, but the bow also falls and crushes the enemy pirates. As a last-ditch effort to penetrate the crew's defenses, Django summons the Nyaban brothers, Sham and Buchi, who had been watching over the ship. Although the Nyaban brothers initially appear weak and cowardly, they use this as an act to catch Zoro off guard. Sham takes 2 of Zoro's katanas, leaving him to defend himself with a single sword. Usopp attempts to shoot them with a slingshot but misses, hitting Zoro instead and allowing the Nyaban brothers to slash his chest. Nami attempts to retrieve Zoro's katanas but is stopped by Django, who slices her in the shoulder with his chakram. To the horror of the Black Cat pirates, Kuro arrives at the coast, frustrated with the setbacks to the operation. Django and the rest of the Black Cat pirates are terrified by him, including Sham and Buchi. He can't believe that his former crew was held back by a bunch of children. He asks Django for an explanation. Django reminds Kuro, who said letting Usopp go would not cause any problems. Kuro said that he knew that Usopp would try in vain to stop the Black Cat pirates from invading Syrup Village since no one would believe him, but the one thing he didn't count on was the weakness of his crew. This remark made Sham and Buchi very mad. They remembered Kuro as a strong killer and said they were sinking ships and vanquishing pirate crews while Kuro lived the good life. They accused him of becoming weak. They go straight to him, hoping to kill him. Django tries to warn them, but it was no use. Before they could deal him a blow, he suddenly disappeared, and reappeared moments later behind them with his cat claws gloves on his hands. It surprised even Zoro. They tried to attack him again, but he disappeared one more time. Django recognized this move as the Nukiashi technique, Kuro's trademark attack. He reappeared behind Sham and Buchi again, with his claw like knives pointing at them. Even Nami is impressed by this, as the Nyaban brothers nearly defeated Zoro. This silent technique is so powerful not even a group of 50 assassins could stop Kuro. Django knew he hasn't lost that attack by the way he always lifted his glasses to avoid being cut by his cat claws gloves. Nami managed to get up despite her wound. Kuro gave his crew 5 minutes to kill Zoro, otherwise he will kill them all. Sham and Buchi go straight to Zoro to kill him. Django encourages them to stop him. Nami kicks the 2 swords straight to Zoro. The swordsman managed to get them. Although a little upset that Nami kicks his swords without any respect, Zoro thanks her for giving him back his swords, and he defeats the Nyaban brothers by using the Toragari technique. Kuro is still counting the minutes. Usopp and the Black Cat pirates are surprised by the swordsman's attack. Even Django is shocked by it. Zoro said to Kuro that the former captain will be defeated in less than 5 minutes. Kuro is a little impressed. Buchi is still conscious and begs Django to hypnotize him so he will become strong enough to defeat Zoro. Django managed to do so, and Zoro decided to deal with Bucci before he can fight Kuro. After being hypnotized, Bucci becomes stronger and more savage than before. His muscles even increased in size. That surprised Zoro, but he managed to regain his calm and decided to fight him no matter what happens. Meanwhile, Nami goes to wake up Luffy, who is sleeping beneath the figurehead of the Bezan Black. She managed to wake him up by pressing her foot into his head. Luffy woke up just in time to stop Django's pendulum from killing Nami with his bare teeth while arguing with Nami for the way she wakes people up. Nami learned that Django's pendulum is also used as a weapon. The Black Cat pirates begin to think it will be impossible to defeat Luffy and Zoro since they appeared to be very strong. After waking up Luffy, Nami passes out for a bit. Luffy notices Nami's wound. Nami asks Luffy to fight for the village and her treasure, and Luffy accepts. The pirates run from Luffy, scared for their life. While Bucci fights Zoro, Django will deal with Luffy. Kuro said that time is up and he will kill everyone on the North Slope. He is also surprised that Luffy survived the fall from the cliff since he thought that fall would have killed him. Before Kuro could kill anyone, Kaya arrives and begs him to stop. Usopp managed to save her before Kuro slashes her. She said to Usopp that she could not bear to see him get hurt protecting her. She then talks to Kuro and said he can take her fortune and leave the village alone. Kuro said to Kaya he wants more than her fortune. He wants peace. He said despite her plea, the Black Cat pirates will still attack Syrup Village and kill her. She then pulled a gun from her coat and pointed it at Kuro. She threatens to kill him if Kuro and the Black Cat pirates don't leave the island this instant. Kuro managed to lower her guard down by talking about the last 3 years they spent together. He also said that spending 3 years with her was an insult to his pride as a pirate. He takes the gun from her and throws it to the ground. Asa takes the gun and tries to shoot Kuro down, but Kuro used his Nukiashi to reappear behind the liar with his cat claws gloves on. He tried to kill him to make him pay for punching him, but his attempts were stopped by Luffy, who gave him a Gomu Gomu no pistol, sending him to the ground. Luffy swears Kuro will have a bad day since he hates being punched. As the Usopp pirates come to his aid and beat Kuro as he is down, but Kuro gets up and beats Usopp to the ground. Now, knowing his opponent possessed a devil fruit ability, he decides to personally focus on Luffy, ordering Django to pursue and kill Kaya. Although now incapacitated and no longer able to fight, Usopp orders the children to protect Kaya as she evades Django's pursuit. Although Zoro attempts to aid Luffy, he is stopped by a strengthened Bucci. Although Bucci greatly disrupts the battlefield with his powerful attacks, Zoro uses his 3 swords to cut him down. Kuro mocks Usopp for his weakness and determination to become a brave warrior, and his crew joins in the mockery. However, Luffy attacks the crew members with a boulder. With Luffy's permission, Zoro leaves the battlefield to help protect Kaya from Django. Luffy continues his battle against Kuro, but Kuro evades each of Luffy's attacks using his Nukiashi technique. Although his crew members cheer on him as their captain, Kuro denounces the title, explaining his intentions to no longer be a pirate captain. When he was at sea, Kuro grew tired of being a fugitive under constant marine pursuit, so he decided to carry out a plan. When his ship was attacked by a marine ship, Kuro entered the ship and slaughtered every marine on board, save for a single soldier. Django hypnotized the soldier and one of Kuro's own men who resembled him. Under hypnosis, the crewman believed himself to be Kuro, and the soldier turned him into the Marines. Believing him to be Kuro himself, the Marines arrested and executed him. Kuro was now free to live a more peaceful life, now only needing money inherited from Kaya. Back to the present day, Kuro resumes his battle with Luffy. Using the boulder from before, Luffy manages to break off all the blades on Kuro's right glove. Luffy declares that as Kuro desired to retire from piracy, his ambition was greater. The children escort Kaya through the forest as they hide from Django, and Zoro and Usopp attempt to locate the group. However, Kaya falls ill and is no longer able to run. The children attempt to ambush him with a fake surrender, their weapons and a falling log. But this attempt fails as Django is unharmed by the attacks. After Django threatens to kill the children, Kaya agrees to sign the will as planned, and in exchange the children would be spared. However, before Django is able to kill Kaya, Zoro and Usopp finally locate her and arrive to her aid. At the northern coast, Kuro reveals his intentions to slaughter his entire crew to prevent any of them from exposing him in the future. His standard Nukiashi techniques fail against Luffy's attacks, so he uses his Shakushi technique, an indiscriminate attack in which he slashes all objects and people in sight at such a great speed he is completely invisible to his opponents. Although Luffy was his only opponent, the attack harms his own crew members, leaving them gravely injured. Luffy is injured by the attacks as he struggles to effectively combat Kuro's ability. Kuro attempts to use Shakushi on Luffy once again, but this time Luffy uses his rubber body to restrain him and prevent him from moving. Stretching his neck back, he uses Gomu Gomu no Cane, a powerful headbutt knocking Kuro unconscious and destroying his glasses. Concluding the battle, Luffy orders the remaining Black Cat pirates to leave the island, taking Kuro with them. Simultaneously, Zoro and Usopp arrive to protect Kaya from Django. Zoro cuts down a tree branch, clearing the way for Usopp's Hisatsu Kyaku Boshi, a fired pellet that explodes in Django's face, defeating him. As he did not want to be known as the village hero, Usopp asks the children not to disclose his deeds to the townspeople. After meeting with the crew to thank them for their help, Usopp meets with the children. Explaining his desires to leave the village to become a real pirate, Usopp disbands the crew, telling each child to pursue their individual ambitions. To thank them for their heroic deeds, Kaya gifts the crew with the Going Merry, a full-sized caravel designed by Merry. Gratefully accepting the ship, the crew prepare to depart, also deciding to take Usopp along as a new permanent member of the crew. Kaya meets with Merry at the coast, where Merry explains Usopp's past. In his childhood, Usopp's father, Yasopp, set sail with Shanks to become a pirate, leaving behind his son and wife. Usopp's mother passed away from illness soon after Yasopp's departure. Now lonely, Usopp became the town liar, hoping that his lies would come true and his father would someday return. In the present day, the children assume Usopp's role as the town liar, claiming an incoming pirate invasion. While at sea, Luffy designs a Jolly Roger to represent the crew. After refining the design with his artistic skills, Usopp paints it to the sails. However, Nami spots the island of rare animals in the distance, an island rumored to contain legendary treasures but is divinely protected by the gods. The crew decide to dock at the island to plunder its treasures. However, they are quickly confronted by strange hybrid animals and an unseen man claiming to be a god. After his makeshift traps fail against the crew, he attempts to retreat, but the crew catch him. They discover the man is Gaimon, a man who had been trapped in a box for 20 years. Luffy quickly befriends Gaimon, but is warned of the horrors that lie ahead in the Grand Line. Gaimon explains his past. Formerly a boy aboard a pirate ship, he too arrived at the island in search of treasures, but his crew failed to find any treasure after a month of searching and prepared to leave. Gaimon finally found treasure atop a mountain, but fell off the mountain and into a box where he became stuck. He also found out that his crew had already set sail, leaving him behind. The crew decide to search for the treasure themselves. However, after Luffy climbs the mountain, he realizes that all 5 treasure boxes at the top of the mountain were empty. Luffy decides to invite Gaimon into his crew. Gaimon refuses, stating that he had befriending the animals native to the island. He also states that knowing there was no treasure gave him closure and the freedom to live as he pleased. After Gaimon thanks them for their help, the crew depart, heading towards their next destination. After Luffy finds a box of cannonballs on board, he and Usopp decide to play with the ship's cannons. As they do so, Zoro takes a nap, where he dreams about his childhood. Zoro was a dojoyaburi at Shimotsuki village, challenging local dojos to duels. However, after challenging the dojo of Kushiro, he faced defeat at the hands of Kushiro's daughter, Quina, and as promised had to join the dojo as a student. After training much more rigorously than his peers, he became strong enough to defeat the adults at the dojo but was still unable to defeat Quina. One day, Zoro challenged Quina to a duel using real swords as opposed to shinai. Quina defeated Zoro for the 2000th time. However, she lamented she would never become a powerful sword fighter as she was a woman. Zoro and Quina promised to each other to train harder and become stronger, and one of them would become the world's greatest swordsman. Both kept their promises and increased their training efforts, but Quina tragically suffered a fatal fall down a flight of stairs. With Quina deceased, Zoro decided he had to become the world's greatest swordsman to honor his promise. Kushiro entrusted Zoro with Quina's prized heirloom katana, the Wado Ikimonji, for him to further his training. Zoro would train for another 8 years before leaving the dojo to become a pirate hunter. Back in the present day, Luffy fires the cannon at a distant rock. They then go to the kitchen, but they find themselves raided by Johnny, Zoro's old friend. Johnny accuses the crew of attempting to kill his friend. Johnny explains that after his bounty hunting partner Yosaku had fallen ill from an unknown disease, they had stopped at a rock so Yosaku could rest. However, the rock was targeted by Luffy's cannon, which he assumed to be a deliberate attack. The crew take an ill Yosaku on board and Nami diagnoses him with scurvy, a disease caused by a vitamin C deficiency. After treating his illness by feeding him lime juice, they bring him inside to rest. The crew decide they need a crew member specializing in cooking to tend to their dietary needs. They decide to stop at the Baratie, a ship and ocean-going restaurant. However, they arrive at the same time as Marine Lieutenant Fullbody, who enters the restaurant for a date but orders his men to destroy the crew's ship. Luffy deflects their cannonball with his rubber body, but this causes the cannonball to strike the Baratie's rooftop, blasting a large hole in the roof and injuring the head chef, Zeph. As Luffy had no money to pay for repairs, Zeph forces him to work as a chore boy for an entire year to make up for the incident, and he refuses to negotiate with Luffy. Meanwhile, Full Buddy gets into an argument with the restaurant's sous chef, Sanji, after the former attempts to place a fly in his soup. After the argument escalates, Full Buddy destroys the table, spilling the soup on the ground. For wasting the food he made, Sanji beats Full Buddy with his legs, prompting the other members of the crew to enter the restaurant to investigate the loud sounds. Baratie's patissier, Patty, denounces Sanji for his violent actions against Full Buddy. Zeph also beats Luffy through the floor above, causing them to fall into the dining area below. While Zeph, Patty, and Sanji continue to argue, Full Buddy attempts to flee, but is informed by his crew that Don Krieg, the most feared pirate in East Blue, has escaped their custody despite being starved for days. One of Krieg's officers, Jin, appears at the restaurant requesting food. Patty refuses to feed him as Jin cannot pay for the food, beating him to the ground and throwing him outside. Sanji decides to generously feed Jin with a dish of seafood risotto, which he gratefully accepts. Watching from above, Luffy invites Sanji into his crew, but Sanji refuses the invitation, stating he had reasons to stay at the Baratie. Jin warns Luffy of the dangers that lie in the Grand Line. Jin leaves on his ship to return to his captain. Luffy and Sanji return to work, where the former works as a chore boy, but his clumsiness destroys the kitchen. Patty orders him to become a waiter instead, sending him into the dining area to take orders. While Luffy tends to the crew's table, Sanji serenades Nami, which disgusts Zeph. Meanwhile, Jin returns to Krieg at their headquarters. Despite Sanji's generosity towards Jin, they decide to plan an invasion of Baratie. Sanji attempts to charm Nami, treating her with a fruit Macedonia, which gets him into an argument with Zeph. However, fog arrives and the customers notice the arrival of Krieg's fleet. Fearing Krieg's reputation, the patrons immediately flee the restaurant. Krieg enters the Baratie with Jin, begging for food and promising not to attack the ship if fed. Against the wishes of Patty and all the other staff, Sanji agrees to feed him, giving Krieg a bowl of rice. Krieg hungrily eats the food, but staying true to his reputation, once he finishes his food, he betrays the Baratie, launching an invasion. Having a damaged ship and 100 starving subordinates, he demands the staff to feed all of his crew members, then vacate the Baratie so he could take the ship for himself. Sanji attempts to comply with Krieg's demands, but the other staff restrain him, refusing to give up the ship. Patty shoots him with Shokotari meatball, but his golden armor leaves him completely unharmed by the explosive. In response, gun barrels emerge from the armor, and he opens fire at the kitchen staff. At this point, Zeph decides to submit to Krieg, giving him food for his crew members. Zeph criticizes Krieg for his failed entry into the Grand Line. Krieg recognizes Zeph as a former pirate known for fighting only with his legs, but notes that he had since retired from piracy after losing one of his legs. Believing he only lacked the knowledge needed to traverse the Grand Line, Krieg demands Zeph's old logbook to help him return to the sea. He returns to his ship to give the food to his crew, warning the staff to vacate before he returned. Jin apologizes on Krieg's behalf, unaware of his plans to betray the Baratie. He explains that the Krieg pirates' entire armada was defeated by a single man, whom they believe to be the world-famous warrior known as Hawkeye's, 50 ships with 5,000 crew members. Only the flagship containing 100 warriors survived the attack, partially thanks to a storm which carried it back to East Blue. Krieg gives the food to his people, where he explains his intentions to scrap the flagship, seize the Baratie, and return to the Grand Line. He shoots a crew member just for protesting this decision. However, before they are able to initiate their attack, the ship is sliced in half with a single slice, revealing that Hawkeyes had followed the Krieg pirates to the Baratie. The ship sinks and its crew members fall into the sea. They also find Johnny and Yosaku floating in the sea, who reveal that Nami has defected from the crew, taking the ship with her. Yosaku explains how he and Johnny lost the Going Merry. While their backs were turned to her, Nami pushed them both overboard. Stating she needed to take care of business, she drove the ship away, leaving the crew behind. Almost immediately after Johnny and Yosaku fell into the sea, they witnessed the Krieg pirates' flagship be destroyed. Zoro recognizes the assailant as Dracule Hawkeye's Mihawk, rumored to be the world's greatest swordsman. Mihawk states that he attacked the Krieg pirates simply for his own amusement. Zoro immediately challenges him to a duel, to which he accepts. However, seeing Zoro as comparatively weaker than him, he uses a kogatana. They begin battle. Despite wielding 3 katana, Zoro is unable to land a single attack on Mihawk, who blocks each of his attacks with his kogatana. Eventually, he manages to wound Zoro, piercing him in the chest. Seeing Zoro's strong will, Mihawk agrees to use his Mito, Yoru, against Zoro. With this weapon, Mihawk destroys 2 of Zoro's katana, leaving only Zoro's Wado Ichimonji unharmed and further wounding him. In defeat, Zoro allows Mihawk to slash him across the chest, knocking him unconscious. Mihawk deliberately let Zoro live, telling him to become stronger so Zoro may eventually surpass him. Zoro agrees, vowing to never lose another battle before defeating Mihawk. Satisfied with the duel, Mihawk decides not to pursue Krieg, leaving. With all interruptions gone, Krieg is now able to attack the Baratie. Luffy orders Usopp and Zoro to pursue Nami while he faces Krieg on his own. Zeph agrees to nullify Luffy's debts if he repels the invasion. Krieg briefly speaks with his crew about his intentions, stating that if he could seize the Baratie, its inconspicuous appearance could be used for deception. Zeph's logbook could also provide useful strategies for traversing the Grand Line, as well as information surrounding the legendary treasure, One Piece. This motivates his men to start battle. To prevent damaging the restaurant's interior from battle, Sanji orders a staff member to raise the Finn's 2 platforms on either side of the restaurant which could function as the battlefield. The Krieg pirates enter the Baratie's port side Finn. As the chefs battle, Patissier Patty and Charcutier Karn operate the Sabagashira I, a fish-shaped paddle boat, and charge at Krieg. Krieg's armor blocks the Sabagashira's artillery, and he then throws the boat back at the Baratie. The boat crashes into the Finn. The chefs charge at the Krieg pirates, but are defeated. Remembering how they were accepted into Baratie, Patty and Karn increase their efforts and defeat many enemy forces, but are taken down by one of Krieg's officers, Ironwall Pearl, a man covered in metal shields. Pearl flaunts his record, as he has won all of his battles without shedding a single drop of blood. However, just as he speaks, Krieg strikes the mast Luffy is holding onto. Luffy falls and hits Pearl from behind, causing Pearl to hit his head against one of his shields, giving him a nosebleed. His record tarnished, Pearl enters an enraged state, where he sets himself on fire, which spreads to the entire Finn. Despite this, Sanji manages to strike Pearl several times with his combat abilities, utilizing only his legs. Pearl is knocked back, and he is crushed by a falling mast, knocking him out. Despite the initial victory, Jin catches Zeph off guard, holding him at gunpoint. Pearl recovers from Sanji's attacks and prepares a counterattack, stating that Jin would shoot if Sanji were to dodge his attacks. With this, Sanji has no choice but to take his attacks, as he is struck in the head by his shields. While he is down, Sanji reflects on his childhood with Zeph. As a child, Sanji was working as a cook aboard a cruise ship, which was then attacked by Zeph's crew, the Cook Pirates. The Cook Pirates plundered the ship and beat Sanji, where Sanji states his dream of locating the legendary All Blue. However, the ships were suddenly caught in a storm, and a particularly strong wave swept Sanji overboard. Zeph chose to risk his life, diving into the sea to save Sanji from drowning. Another strong wave then sunk both ships, presumably killing all people on board. Zeph attempted to save Sanji, but his leg became caught by the ship's wreckage. Zeph had to cut of his own leg with a chain to set himself free. He then rescued Sanji and carried him to a deserted, rocky island. On the island, they divided their rations amongst themselves and went to opposite ends of the island to spot incoming ships. Although Sanji rationed his share of the food to last 20 days, it eventually ran out and he was left starving for several more days. He confronted Zeph, who held a comparatively larger share, and cut open his bag. He finds, to his horror, that Zeph's share was treasure, and he had given Sanji all of the food. Sanji then discovers that he had also severed his right leg to save his life. Zeph explains his reasoning, stating that he also shared Sanji's dream of locating the All Blue, so he sacrificed his leg so Sanji could pursue the dream. Sanji and Zeph were eventually rescued by a ship, and they would found the Baratie restaurant together. In the present day, Sanji stands up to Pearl, prepared to fight for the Baratie. Enraged by the Krieg pirates' actions, Luffy uses Gomu Gomu no Ono, destroying the entire portside Finn. After Luffy destroys the Baratie's Finn, Krieg orders Jin to kill Sanji. Jin hesitates, as Sanji was the staff member who fed his crew. Pearl attempts to kill Sanji himself, but is attacked by Jin, who destroys his front shield and knocks him out. Jin decides to personally battle Sanji as a thanks for his generosity, while Krieg focuses on Luffy. Jin, dubbed the Man-Demon for his extreme cruelty, uses his Man-Demon tactics against Sanji, armed with 2 weighted tonfa. Despite Sanji initially striking Jin to the ground, he quickly recovers, cruelly beating Sanji and gravely injuring him. However, after pinning Sanji to the ground, he is unable to finish him off out of remorse and guilt. Because of Sanji's hospitality, he begs Krieg to stop the attack, but Krieg denies this request, denouncing Jin for his insubordination. Krieg decides to unleash MH5, a lethal poison gas bomb. Krieg's men wear gas masks to protect themselves, the chefs dive underwater, and Zeph retreats to the restaurant's interior. Luffy takes masks off 2 Krieg pirates and gives them to Sanji and Jin to protect them. However, he is unable to find a mask for himself before the bomb is launched. Luffy is left without a means to protect himself from Krieg's MH5 gas. However, Jin decides to give his own mask to Luffy, saving Luffy's life but inhaling the poison himself. He immediately suffers the effects of the poison, causing internal bleeding. While the restaurant staff rush to care for Jin's condition, Luffy battles Krieg. He penetrates Krieg's defenses and punches through Krieg's Kenzan mantle, a spiked cape, hitting Krieg in the face. As his ultimate weapon, Krieg uses his armor's pauldrons to form the Daisenso, a spear which creates an explosion upon every impact. To combat this, Luffy punches the Daisenso's spearhead 5 times in a row, getting caught in the explosion every time, but eventually destroying the spear's head. Zeph admires Luffy for his determination and lack of hesitation. Having damaged the Daisenso, Luffy continues his attack against Krieg. At one point, Krieg climbs a mast, where Luffy strikes him with a Gomu Gomu no Bazooka, cracking Krieg's armor. Although Krieg attempts to deter him with explosives, Luffy strikes Krieg with a second Gomu Gomu no Bazooka, shattering the armor. Krieg captures Luffy with a net, intending for the both of them to fall into the sea and Luffy to drown. Luffy manages to counter this by freeing his limbs, grabbing Krieg's face with his feet, and slamming him into the Baratie's fin with Gomu Gomu no Azuchi, knocking him unconscious and defeating him. Luffy falls into the sea, but Sanji rescues him and brings him to safety. However, Krieg gets up, now hysterical from his own defeat, attacking his own men in a panic. Jin strikes him back down, knocking him unconscious again and preventing him from causing further harm. Escorting Krieg away, he orders a full retreat on behalf of the Krieg pirates, promising to rebuild his crew and eventually meet Luffy's crew on the Grand Line. Sanji gives the Baratie's supply ship for the defeated pirates to retreat. On the Going Merry, Nami laments having to steal the ship, but cries, stating her desires to be free and mentioning Belle Mere. After expelling the Krieg pirates, Luffy asks Sanji to join the crew, to which he refuses. Still, Sanji mentions his dream of locating the All Blue, a mythical ocean where all 4 seas meet. Zeph overhears this conversation between Sanji and Luffy. The restaurant staff taste Sanji's soup, and Patty, Carney, and Zeph all pretend to dislike the soup to prompt Sanji to set sail with Luffy, and Sanji leaves the dining area in anger. Zeph reveals his true intentions to Luffy, and Sanji overhears this from outside the restaurant. He finally agrees to join the crew as their cook. A shark arrives at the Baratie with Yosaku in its mouth. He reports he was unable to follow Nami, but was able to estimate her rough destination, warning of its danger. So the crew prepare for departure, with Luffy packing food from the kitchen and Sanji preparing to move out. Sanji walks out the Baratie in front of the kitchen staff, prostrating in front of Zeph and thanking him for his sacrifices. Meanwhile, the Going Merry nears its destination, an island ruled by a fearsome pirate crew. While at sea, Yosaku reveals Nami's destination, Arlong Park, the base of the most notorious pirate in the East Blue, Arlong. Yosaku suspects Nami is after Arlong's bounty and warns of the dangers that lie ahead, since Arlong is a fishman originating from the Grand Line, so his strength surpasses even that of Krieg. Arlong had previously worked with Jinbe of the 7 warlords of the sea, 7 government-sanctioned pirates such as Mihawk. Yosaku, Luffy, and Sanji go to the galley for lunch. Nami arrives at Arlong Park, where Arlong makes a bribery with a corrupt marine officer. She reaches the base and beats a child attempting to eliminate Arlong. Arriving at the island, Zoro prepares to invade the base, but Usopp and Johnny stop him, tying him with rope and sailing around the island. However, the ship is spotted by resident fishmen. Usopp and Johnny abandon ship, but Zoro is unable to escape the ship, and he is captured by Arlong pirates. Zoro is interrogated by Arlong, where Arlong claims that fishmen are far superior to humans, as they possess greater strength and can breathe underwater. Nami confronts Zoro, revealing she is an officer and cartographer serving under Arlong. Johnny and Usopp arrive on shore at Gosa Village, only to find the entire village had been destroyed, and all houses had been flipped upside down. A resident fishman explains that the village was destroyed by the Arlong pirates' sea monster, Mamu, for protesting against Arlong's reign. Revealing himself to be an Arlong pirate, he attempts to capture Usopp, but is rescued by a human resident, Nojiko, who diverts the pirate away. They then visit Nojiko's house. Luffy, Sanji, and Yosaku eat outside on the deck, but the food attracts Mamu, the Arlong pirate's sea beast who resembles a cow. Mamu attacks the ship for the food, but Luffy and Sanji fight back, knocking him back into the sea. Luffy forces Mamu to carry the ship to Arlong Park. Usopp is brought to Nojiko's house, where Chabo reveals his father was killed by Arlong when Gosa Village was destroyed. Usopp is informed of Nami's allegiance to Arlong. Nojiko reveals she is also Nami's adopted sister. Usopp laments Nami's betrayal, despite believing she genuinely enjoying her experience with the crew. In Kokayashi Village, Usopp and Nojiko hide from Arlong, who confront a man, Genzo, for possession of a weapon. Nojiko reveals that Arlong sees humans as inferiors for him to use as he pleases, forcing all citizens under his reign to pay him a monthly tribute to him in exchange for their lives. He destroyed Gosa Village because of the failure of one person to pay the tribute. Arlong reveals his intentions to use the funds to dominate all of East Blue. Deeming the mere possession of a weapon as a form of rebellion, Arlong decides to execute Genzo. However, Usopp interferes, shooting him with his slingshot standing on a house. Enraged, Arlong lifts the house off its foundation, slamming it into the neighboring house. Fearing the loss of another stream of income, Arlong's crew restrain him to prevent him from destroying Kokoyasi Village. Genzo's wounds are treated, and Nami visits a marked grave atop a cliff. She states her intentions to raise 100 million bellies to buy her village back from Arlong. As Luffy, Sanji, and Yosaku sail towards Arlong Park with Mamu's help, Zoro, having cleared the base from all other enemies, meet one of Arlong's officers, Hachin. Believing him to simply be a guest visiting the base, Hachin offers to give Zoro a ride to Kokoyasi Village. Zoro departs just before Arlong returns to the base and discovers the damage done to the base. He is informed that the prisoner they have just captured was none other than pirate hunter Roronoa Zoro. Meanwhile, Usopp evades pursuit by angered Arlong pirates. Although successfully escapes Arlong's lesser combatants, he falls off a cliff, attracting the attention of Chu, one of Arlong's officers. He is captured and brought to Arlong Park for interrogation. Another officer, Kurubi, suspects that Nami lured Zoro to the base, then helped him escape custody. Nami arrives to levy the allegations made against her, but Kurubi adds to the accusations, reporting finding a treasure map in Nami's home, suggesting she was keeping treasure in Kokoyasi Village. In order to prove her allegiance to the Arlong pirates, she stabs Usopp in the stomach, causing him to fall into the pool. Arlong's officers now trust Nami, letting her go. Nami goes to her office, but notices that Luffy's ship had arrived at Arlong Park. The ship is sent flying into the sky, meets Zoro in the forest, and crashes into a paddy. At that moment, Johnny, having witnessed Nami stab Usopp, reports Usopp's killing. Nami confronts the crew at the paddy field, clarifying her allegiance to the Arlong pirates and asking them to leave the island before they are captured. However, determined to take Nami as his navigator, Luffy vehemently refuses to leave the island, lying on the road to sleep. No longer wanting to face danger on the island, Johnny and Yosaku decide to part ways with the crew, bidding farewell to Zoro. Usopp, revealed to be alive, reunites with the crew, revealing that Nami stabbed the back of her own hand, leaving him unharmed and allowing him to escape alive. Meanwhile, the Marine 77th Branch, led by Commodore Pudding, near the island to rescue survivors from Gosa Village and capture Arlong. Arlong decides to send only 3 of his officers to repel the attack. While Chu intimidates the Marine forces on board, Kurubi tears off the ship's rudder and Hachin creates an artificial maelstrom, sinking the ship and presumably killing all invading forces. Then Arlong, to prevent Nami from purchasing Kokoyasi Village, summons Marine 16th Branch, led by Captain Nizumi, to her house. Nojiko meets with Nami at her house, where Nami reveals she built truly positive experiences with the crew while they were together. Nojiko then goes to the crew, explaining to them Nami's past. Nami and Nojiko were raised in Kokoyasi Village by a woman named Belle Mir. Chu, Kurubi, and Hachin investigate reports of a flying ship, finding the ship's wreckage in the paddy field. They confront Luffy, watching him taking a walk in the area. Meanwhile, Nojiko tells the other members of the crew about Nami's past. Both were raised in the outskirts of Kokoyasi Village by their adoptive mother, Belle Mir, who farmed Makan to survive. Being a low-income family, Nami often stole books from a local bookstore to support her passion in cartography. Belle Mir fed Nojiko and Nami while eating only Mycons herself, and Nami received only hand-me-down clothing from Nojiko. Angry by the lack of money her family had, she ran away from her home and sought shelter at Genzo's office. Genzo explained to Nami how she was adopted. He explained that Belle Mir traveled overseas as a Marine, where she met Nojiko and infant Nami. She decided to take the two back to Kokoyasi Village, adopt them, and raise them as her own children. At that moment, Nojiko arrived, reunited with Nami, and the two traveled back to Belle Mir's house for dinner. However, Kokoyasi Village then faced an invasion from the Arlong pirates. Arlong declared the entire island, including the village, his own domain, and all citizens would have to pay a monthly tribute to him in exchange for their lives. They eventually discovered smoke coming from the outskirts, leading them to Belle Mir's house. Nojiko and Nami feared Belle Mir would be unable to pay the tribute, rushing to their home to warn her. The Arlong pirates confronted Belle Mir at her house for her monthly tribute. Belle Mir was unable to defend herself against Arlong, and also could not pay for both herself and her children, only possessing 100,000 bellies. Townspeople attempted to hide Nojiko and Nami as her daughters so Belle Mir would be able to pay for herself. However, Belle Mir refusing to deny the existence of her family, and paid the tribute for her daughters, not for herself. After bidding farewell to Nojiko and Nami, she was shot dead by Arlong. Impressed with the map drawn by Nami, Arlong accepted her into the crew, where she was given plenty of money. Nami intended to raise 100 million bellies so she could buy her village back from Arlong. Nami would become a pirate thief under Arlong, stealing from pirates and burying her savings underground. However, in the present day, Nami is confronted by Nezumi. As her treasures were stolen goods, Nezumi seized her treasures, confiscating it as government property. Despite her pleas, Nezumi seizes all of Nami's savings, finding the treasure buried in the orchard and keeping a portion of it for himself. Nami realizes that Arlong sent Nezumi to seize her wealth so he would not have to forfeit the village. After Nami attempts to fight back, Nezumi shoots Nojiko in the back. While Nojiko's wounds are treated by a village doctor, Nami confronts Arlong. Arlong argues that he did not break any terms of his promise by sending Nezumi after Nami's treasure. Betrayed, Nami returns to the village, where the townspeople led by Genzo have decided to battle against the Arlong pirates against her wishes. Knowing their strength is insufficient to defeat Arlong, Nami attempts to dissuade them, but the townspeople insist, marching to Arlong Park. Furious with Arlong's actions, Nami repeatedly stabs the Arlong pirate's tattoo on her shoulder, finally requesting Luffy's help in defeating Arlong. Luffy agrees, sending the crew to Arlong Park. Johnny and Yosaku stop the villagers from marching into the base so that the crew may battle for them. The crew break into Arlong Park and Luffy punches Arlong in the face. Hachen recognizes Zoro as the fugitive swordsman, and seeing that Usopp is alive, the Arlong pirates realize Nami betrayed them. Hachen summons Mamu to eliminate the crew, but Luffy uses Gomu Gomu no Kazaguruma, knocking out Mamu and defeating all Arlong pirates, except for Arlong and his officers. However, Luffy is rendered immobile as he planted his feet into the concrete floor during the attack. Arlong's 3 officers step forward, and Hachen attempts to cover Luffy with his squid ink, then crush him with debris. Even though this attack fails to harm Luffy, his feet are still stuck in the ground. Sanji decides to battle Karubi, Zoro chooses Hachen as his opponent, and Usopp accidentally angers Chu, who chases him. Chu notices the townspeople attempting to rebel, but is unable to suppress the rebellion, as Usopp formally chooses him as his opponent. Chu chases Usopp out of the base. As Luffy is still immobile, Arlong decides to start a game where he picks up Luffy along with a piece of the ground still attached to his legs. He throws Luffy into the pool to drown. Zoro and Sanji are unable to rescue him before defeating their respective opponents, as Karubi and Hachen would have a physical advantage underwater. Zoro battles against Hachen. Despite Hachen being unarmed, Zoro struggles against him as he is still injured from his duel against Mihawk and also only has one sword intact. This distracts Sanji, allowing Karubi to strike him. As Zoro and Sanji would be unable to rescue Luffy in time, Genzo and Nojiko attempt to save him themselves. They sneak into the base, dive into the pool, and attempt to rescue him. But Genzo is unable to break the cement attached to Luffy's feet. Nojiko brings only his head above the surface so he may breathe, and Genzo remains underwater to resuscitate him. Hachen climbs into his base to get his weapons, 6 swords for his 6 tentacles. Zoro borrows from Johnny and Yosaku's swords to use 3-sword style against Hachen. Hachen resorts to targeting Zoro's wounds, striking him in the abdomen. Despite potentially reopening his wounds, Zoro defeats Hachen with Tatsumaki, destroying all 6 of Hachen's swords and propelling him into the air. Despite defeating his opponent, Zoro is too injured to dive into the water to rescue Luffy. Sanji is forced to dive into the water to rescue Luffy, knowing Kurobi would have an advantage over him underwater. Kurobi strikes Sanji from behind. Meanwhile, Chu chases Usopp through the island outskirts. Nami, who finishes bandaging her wounds at her house, decides to return to Arlong Park and join the battle. Having an advantage underwater, Kurobi battles Sanji in the pool. Restraining him with his hair, he beats Sanji with his fishman karate, preventing him from resurfacing. He then grabs Sanji and dives underwater, causing the water pressure change to crush his body. Sanji then blows air into Kurobi's gills, harming him and returning to the surface. On land, Sanji gains an advantage over Kurobi. Despite Kurobi threatening to use his signature move, Sanji uses a series of rapid attacks against him before Mutan's shot, defeating him and sending him crashing through the building. Meanwhile, Usopp pretends to be dead to avoid Chu, but decides not to evade him and confront him. He hides in the forest, and Chu uses water from the paddy fields to spit at the forest as bullet-like projectiles. Despite this, having covered Chu with flammable wine, Usopp sets him on fire with an incendiary projectile, then strikes him with his hammer. Usopp repeatedly beats Chu with his hammer until he is knocked unconscious. At the base, Nojiko and Genzo switch places, with Nojiko now being underwater. Arlong attacks Zoro and Sanji by throwing water at them like projectiles, but Nami arrives to their aid, declaring battle against Arlong. Arlong offers not to kill the citizens of Kokoyasi village if Nami surrenders, only killing the crew. Nami decides to refuse this offer, joining the battle even at the expense of the townspeople. Meanwhile, Nojiko successfully revives Luffy, but most of his body remains trapped underwater. While Sanji dives underwater to break the cement trapping Luffy, Zoro battles Arlong, attempting to break his saw nose he claims is indestructible. Usopp also appears, announcing his victory against Chu. Arlong defeats Zoro by piercing him with his nose, then removes his bandages and notices the wounds he sustained from Mihawk. Underwater, Sanji prepares to free Luffy from the cement, but Hachan, having regained consciousness, pursues him. However, by straining himself, Hachan reopens the wounds he sustained from Zoro, collapsing again from blood loss. Sanji destroys the cement attached to Luffy's feet, freeing him. Launching himself out of the pool and into the air, he uses a series of attacks against Arlong. Luffy mocks Arlong's fish-like features, angering him further. Arlong attacks Luffy, biting through a stone column with his teeth and crushing his swords. Stating his dependence for his crew members for support, Luffy punches Arlong in the face, destroying his teeth, but Arlong reveals he is able to regrow his teeth, with each new set of teeth being stronger than the last. He then uses his removed sets of teeth as handheld weapons. Luffy then takes one of Arlong's sets of teeth and also uses it as his own weapon, placing it in his mouth. As a second technique, Arlong uses shark on darts, where he dives underwater, then charges at Luffy intending to pierce him with his nose. Although he uses this attack against Luffy multiple times, Luffy is able to stop him in his trajectory using his rubber-like hands. Having been sufficiently angered, Arlong, possessing an ability similar to Sea King's, enters an enraged, stronger state. In this state, he retrieves his weapon, the Kiribachi, a saw-like Zanbato with tooth-like blades. He slams Luffy through the base's wall and into the building. Discovering the cartography room where Nami drew her maps, Luffy declares Nami his own navigator. Luffy notices Nami's old pen covered in her blood, revealing the abuse she endured as Arlong's cartographer. After Arlong boasts about using her for his own personal gain, Luffy breaks the Kiribachi's blades with his hands, then destroys the sea maps and furniture in the room. The spectators outside the base notice the furniture being thrown out of the building, which is also seen by Nami, who thanks Luffy for doing so. Arlong angrily bites Luffy's shoulder, but Luffy manages to break Arlong's nose. In one final attempt, Arlong attempts his shark on tooth technique against Luffy, but Luffy uses Gomu Gomu no Ono to stomp down on Arlong's back, sending him crashing down through several floors before landing on the bottom floor, unconscious. The structural damage caused by Luffy's attack causes the building to collapse. Luffy emerges from the rubble and declares Nami to be his crew member, to which she accepts. The spectators attempt to celebrate their liberation from Arlong, but are stopped by Nezumi's forces, who attempts to seize Arlong's wealth for himself. The crew angrily attack the Marines, ordering them to arrest Arlong and return his wealth to the townspeople. Nezumi vows retribution before fleeing. Back at Kokoyasi village, Genzo, on behalf of the townspeople, apologizes to Nami for ostracizing her. Meanwhile, Nezumi returns to his headquarters, where he reports Luffy to the Marines and requests that a high bounty be issued in his name. News of Arlong's defeat spread to all villages in the island, and the townspeople celebrate their liberation. As Luffy eats and Zoro receives proper treatment for his wounds from Nako, Nami visits Belmir's grave with Nojiko and Genzo, where she reveals her intentions of leaving her village to join Luffy's crew. Nightfall arrives, and as the party continues, Nami consults Nako to have her Arlong pirate's tattoo removed. She replaces the tattoo with one depicting a mikan branch and a pinwheel before returning to her house to pack. She then departs, leaving behind the 100 million bellies she stole. Meeting the crew on the dock, Nami ignores the citizens attempting to thank her as she jumps onto the Going Merry. It is revealed she pickpocketed the townspeople as she ran past them. The citizens still thank her as she leaves. Meanwhile, it is revealed Genzo, feeling he no longer needed his pinwheel, left it on Belmir's grave. While the crew are at sea, a new COO arrives to deliver a newspaper. They discover a wanted poster for Luffy, indicating he had received a bounty. It is revealed that as Luffy defeated many of the most feared pirates in East Blue, the Marines saw him as a considerable threat and placed a bounty of 30 million bellies on his head, the largest in East Blue. The news reaches both Luffy's allies and old enemies, including Fullbody, who had been demoted to a lower rank after getting into a fight at the Baratie. Fullbody saw Luffy's bounty as an opportunity to capture him and be promoted back to his past rank. Spotting the Going Merry pass by his ship, he orders his soldiers to attack the ship. However, this attack is repelled, and Fullbody retreats upon seeing Sanji. Meanwhile, Mihawk delivers the news to the Red Hair Pirates, who celebrate Luffy's accomplishment. Meanwhile, the crew determine their next destination. The only entrance to the Grand Line is Reverse Mountain, but they decide to first stop by Loguetown, dubbed the town of the beginning and the end due to it being both Gold Roger's birthplace and place of execution. As they sail towards Loguetown, Buggy and Alvida decide to pursue him. As the crew sail towards Loguetown, Nami wonders about Buggy's whereabouts. After being launched into the air by Luffy, he is sent to an uninhabited island with many of his body parts still missing. He escapes on a raft to a second island, where he is captured by an aggressive bird. The bird attempts to eat Buggy, but spits him out into the sky. Buggy is sent to a third island, this time the island of rare animals, where he is confronted by Gaemon. After discovering Buggy is not a poacher targeting the animals, Gaemon befriends him, drinking by a campfire. The next day, Buggy attempts to leave to another island, but his raft is destroyed by a sea beast. He is rescued by Alvida, who had since grown much thinner since her battle with Luffy. Sailing on Alvida's ship, they decide to form an alliance as they were both pursuing the same target, Luffy. Back in the present day, nightfall arrives and the crew go to sleep. Alvida and Buggy sail towards their next destination, focusing on relocating Buggy's crew. The Buggy pirates, having been repelled from Orange Town by the townspeople, fled from the island taking Buggy's body parts with them. Assuming Buggy to be deceased, they host a funeral for him on a separate island, where Moji and Kabaji get into a dispute over who would replace Buggy as the crew's captain. Moji and Kabaji engage in a duel for the captain position, which lasts several hours and into nightfall. They are both simultaneously defeated by a sleepwalking Richie, who is then crowned the new captain of the Buggy pirates. However, they are confronted by the cannibalistic crewmate tribe, who overwhelm and capture the Buggy pirates. The crewmate tribe attempts to boil the Buggy pirates alive for consumption, but Buggy and Alvida locate their flagship docked at the island and arrive to their aid. Buggy, Alvida, Moji, and Kabaji defeat the crewmate tribe with their individual combat abilities and rescue the pirates. With Buggy reassembled and his crew being reunited, the Buggy and Alvida alliance set sail to pursue Luffy. Meanwhile, the crew near Loguetown. Upon arriving at Loguetown, the crew separate to tour the town and shop for goods. However, the Marine captain stationed in Loguetown, Smoker, is informed of Luffy's activity in East Blue. Smoker leaves his post to search the town for Luffy, instead battling and defeating another pirate galley. Smoker then helps Luffy locate the historic execution platform, unaware he is the fugitive he is looking for. Luffy goes to the Gold Roger bar, whose owner personally met Roger when he arrived in Loguetown. After a brief conversation, Luffy departs, only for Smoker to enter immediately after. Smoker remembers witnessing Goldie Roger's execution in his childhood. Just before Roger was killed, he announced that he left behind the One Piece, a legendary treasure for another pirate to find. Luffy finally locates the execution platform. Meanwhile, Smoker discovers that the boy he had helped was indeed his target. He runs to the execution platform to capture Luffy. Meanwhile, Zoro meets Smoker's right hand, Tashigi, who defeats two men harassing her. Zoro helps Tashigi, but accidentally crushes her glasses when he discovers she bears a striking resemblance to his childhood friend, Kina. Smoker confronts Luffy as he attempts to climb the execution platform. Luffy attempts to fight Smoker, but his attack misses, and he accidentally launches himself into the air and far away from the platform. There, he finds the Buggy pirates in disguise in search of him. After being spotted, Luffy runs back to the execution platform. Meanwhile, Tashigi forces Zoro to work as a janitor at the Marine base to pay for the glasses he broke. However, he is recognized by two other Marines as one of Luffy's crew members. Zoro attacks the Marines, takes their money and flees. Zoro goes to the sword shop to purchase two swords, where he meets Tashigi again. After picking the supposedly cursed Sandai Katetsu, he decides to test his luck by throwing the blade into the air and extending his arm in the sword's way. The sword circles neatly around his arm, leaving him unharmed. Impressed with his skill and luck, the store owner decides to give him the Sandai Katetsu, as well as the Yubashiri free of charge. Tashigi reports back to the Marine base, where she is informed that Zoro attacked two Marines. Usopp enters a shop in search of a pair of goggles, but gets into an argument with a little girl, Carol, over a particular pair of goggles. Carol purchases the goggles for her father, infamous sniper Daddy Masterson, and Usopp, unaware of Daddy's identity as a feared bounty hunter, gets into a dispute with him. Daddy recognizes Usopp from Luffy's wanted poster. Usopp and Daddy agree to solve the dispute with a duel to the death. The citizens of Loguetown gather to watch the duel, but Usopp cowardly attempts to flee from the duel before completing his 10 paces. Daddy stops Usopp by shooting the gun from his hand, and the crowd leaves in disappointment. Usopp reveals to Daddy that he is the son of well-known pirate Usopp. Daddy explains his relationship with Usopp. When the Red Hair pirates visited Loguetown, Usopp got into a battle with Daddy. Although Usopp won the duel, he decided not to kill his defeated opponent, sparing his life. Upon Usopp's parting advice, Daddy resigned from the Marines and became a bounty hunter to live closer with his daughter. Inspired by his father's courage, Usopp decides to challenge Daddy to a second duel, to which he agrees. Usopp is tasked with shooting a weather vane in the distance, and he would be shot dead if he missed the target. However, he successfully hits his target, and he is awarded the goggles as promised. As he walks through the streets, Sanji is challenged by Carmen, dubbed the greatest chef in the East Blue, who challenges him to the East Blue cooking contest. Sanji is initially uninterested, but later discovers the prize for winning would be a blue-finned elephant tuna, a rare fish native to the South Blue. He decides to enter the contest. The contest, which is organized with a tournament bracket, begins, and Sanji and Carmen emerge as the two finalists. At the end of the final round, before the winner is announced, Carmen acknowledges Sanji has defeated her. Sanji is declared the winner and is awarded the fish, which is carried to the Going Merry. Meanwhile, Luffy returns to the execution platform. He is spotted, and both Smoker and Buggy follow him. Luffy has climbed up onto the platform where Roger was executed 22 years before. A guard calls for him to get down, since the world government owns the platform. Alvida then hits the guard with her mace. The entire crowd, man and woman, swoons over her new look, but Luffy only remembers her previous appearance. She claims she likes how he hit her at their previous encounter, and would love to have a strong man like him. Other policemen move in, but are disarmed by Alvida's beauty. In comes Buggy, who uses a buggy bomb to blow up the courtyard fountain. A piece of the fountain shoots right at Alvida, but slips right off her body, leaving her unharmed. Alvida tells Luffy she ate the Sub no Mi devil fruit, which makes her body super smooth and gave her a younger, more attractive appearance, which she downplays as if she always was. Then Buggy and his crew remove their capes, and Buggy talks about Buggy-kun's great adventure. The crowd runs in fear when they realize who it is, but Luffy unwittingly makes fun of his name. Kabaji slams a set of stocks down on Luffy, trapping him. Buggy declares his intention to publicly execute Luffy right there on the same platform where Roger died. Elsewhere, Nami notices bizarre weather patterns. A storm is forming unexpectedly. She tells Sanji and Usopp that they have to hurry back to the Going Merry. Zoro arrives and asks if they've seen Luffy, and has a premonition that something's about to happen. At another part of town, a Marine reports to Smoker and Tashigi that Luffy, Buggy, and Alvida are all gathered in the town square. He orders one unit to sea to intercept any escape, and another to surround the square covertly for an ambush. When the other Straw Hats hear what Buggy has planned for Luffy, Zoro and Sanji run off to rescue him, leaving Nami and Usopp to take their supplies to the ship. When he surveys the scene at the square, Smoker thinks how pathetic Luffy looks. He decides to wait with his men and allow Buggy to take care of Luffy before swooping in. Luffy freaks out when he realizes he's about to die. Nami tells Usopp this storm is going to be big. If the Marines stop Luffy and Buggy during the storm, they may not be able to escape. Marines are already preparing to raid the harbor of any pirate ships. But the Going Merry is more in imminent danger from Moji and Richie, who guess which ship is Luffy's based on the Jolly Roger with the straw hat on it, intent on burning it to ensure Luffy can't escape if he manages to evade execution. Back at the square, Luffy drones for mercy as if bored. Given a chance for last words by Buggy, he declares that he will be the Pirate King. Those forced to stay and watch stand in shock. This buys time for Zoro and Sanji to arrive. As they fight through Buggy's and Alvida's men, however, Buggy swings the sword. Tashigi is shocked to find that Zoro is in league with a pirate. Sanji is too far away to kick the platform down. Smoker prepares to give the order to attack when Luffy's head falls. As the sword comes down, Luffy calls out to his crew. Smoker notes that Luffy has a huge grin on his face, but right before Buggy's sword touches Luffy's neck, a bolt of lightning strikes him in the execution platform. The platform catches fire and collapses, and Luffy's hat flutters down to the ground as rain begins to fall, standing unharmed by Buggy, who has been electrocuted. He laughs at his luck. Sanji asks Zoro if he believes in God now. As the shocked crowd just stares at him, Smoker gives the word to attack, and Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji make a run for it. As they are pursued by Marines, Smoker thinks about Luffy smiling. He thinks Luffy couldn't have known Zoro and Sanji would save him. He immediately thought of Roger. Luffy acted exactly the same way Roger did at his execution. Unit 1 was grounded because the rain ruined their gunpowder, and the new wind with the present storm would be a tailwind for a ship going to the Grand Line. Smoker decides to take Luffy on personally, but elsewhere on the island, a man in a green hood with a large facial tattoo walks through the streets, saying the storm of fate has arrived. After escaping death by luck, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji head for the Going Merry, but Buggy and Alvida are in pursuit. Before the duo can take off, they are captured by the Marines, but the duo later escape. On the way, Tashigi appears and challenges Zoro to a duel for lying to her. Zoro points out that he didn't lie, he just didn't tell her. Nevertheless, Zoro and Tashigi clash swords. Meanwhile, Nami and Usopp reach the Going Merry as Moji was about to burn it down. Before Moji can properly fight Nami, the Marines catch up and shoot at Moji. Nami and Usopp take this opportunity board the Going Merry and set sail. At the same time, Luffy and Sanji run into Smoker, who plans to catch Luffy. Sanji goes on, while Luffy and Smoker engage in battle. Luffy's efforts to defeat Smoker are knocked back, however, and Smoker seemingly defeats him. But a mysterious figure stops Smoker and releases a strong gust of wind, thus giving Luffy time to escape. As Zoro also flees, Sanji reaches the shore but is surrounded by the Marines. After this, Usopp uncharacteristically risks his life by diving into the sea, shooting down the Marines with his slingshot, and finally swimming to Sanji. Luffy and Zoro catch up. Luffy then uses his Gomu Gomu rocket to propel Sanji, Usopp, and Zoro to the Going Merry. Smoker, Tashigi, Buggy, and Alvida decide to chase them to the Grand Line as they gather up in different teams. The Straw Hat crew is ecstatic to go to the Grand Line as they all make their vows before setting sail.